Now the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, where Cam Robinson, Director of Film Scouting for Elite Prospects and our draft insider, joins us with his thoughts on the Vancouver Canucks haul from day 2 of the NHL Entry Draft. Cam, how we doing?
I'm doing well, boys. How are you doing?
Yeah, fantastic. So first things first, answer me the poll question. A, B, C, incomplete. What are you giving this draft class from Vancouver?
Well, I like their first 2 picks. I like the top one yesterday. I like the top one today. I'm not so sure about the rest of the picks there, but you know what? They made it count on the first 2, and those are the most important 2. So that alone is going to get them about a C+ for me. I do get a little head scratched when I look at some of the project picks that they take that lack kind of a statistical profile and an upside profile. You can get a lot of these type of players when they're already developed off of the waiver wire in 5 or 6 years, rather than investing a load of time and money and energy in developing them yourself. But that's the route that they're taking these days, it appears.
They seem to get a deal, though, right off the top of the day. They start the day with Hunter Brzustewicz, who on basically every single draft ranking is inside that number 75 that he ends up going to. So, they started the day well, didn't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, I like Brzustewicz. Really strong transition back, good first pass on the right side, projectable skater. I mentioned this on Twitter there that, had a really high pedigree coming out of the U.S. National Team Development Program. At one point, looked like he could have been like the top right shot D in this class. Hasn't been able to kind of maintain that upside over the last year and a half. This is like early in his draft -1, those projections. Moved to Kitchener this year. I think that best case, he ends up being kind of like a helper player on your second pair. But I really like the transition game. The rush defense is coming along. I had him 51 on my board, I believe. So I really like the value there for Vancouver. And again, targeting a right shot defenseman, it's a difficult position to get. So I appreciate that one.
Well, let's stay on right shot defenseman, because I think right shot defenseman and overagers kind of define this Canucks draft class. Aiden Celebrini, Vancouver product. Of course, his dad, Rick, was once the director of human performance for Canucks Sports and Entertainment. His brother, Macklin, figures to be the first overall selection in next year's entry draft. And both Celebrinis are joining Tom Wielander at Boston University. So tell us about Celebrini, the 6th-round pick and the final pick that the Canucks make.
Yeah, well, it's they're obviously selecting him now so that in a decade they can convince Macklin to come home, right? Like that's clearly what's going on here, right?
Very clear.
Yeah. I don't mind this pick either. He's a defensive defender. He's got pro size. He is physical on the right side, like we said, and he skates pretty well. Like he's an above average skater. So I wouldn't say that there's a lot of ceiling here, but it's a depth pick late in the draft with some home team ties, and I'm perfectly fine with that pick.
Well, on to the next defenseman then that they took in the 3rd round after Brzustewicz. What can you tell us about Sawyer Mineo, who played for that powerhouse Seattle Thunderbirds team this year?
Yeah, not a big fan of this pick. I saw him live at least 6 times, and a ton more via film because I was mostly watching Grayson Sutton and Niko Mijatovic. Pretty invisible. He's what we call in EP ringside just a guy. So he's out there, pretty reasonable rush defense, can pass the puck a little bit in the offensive end. Not a very good skater, really struggles to handle the puck. You want to take this kid in the 6th or the 7th, I'll shrug and say sure. But at 89, it's really, really too rich for my blood.
Tyler Mueller was he's a 20-year-old. He's a draft +2 kid out of Nebraska, Omaha, in the NCAA ranks. What can you tell us about Mueller?
He's a kind of a jack of all trades type of player. Kind of a two-way forward. He has pretty good instincts away from the puck. Makes good reads defensively. Knows how to clog up lanes and stuff like that. Plays a pretty smart game. The feet are fine. Maybe slightly below average, maybe about average. Not very quick though. I wouldn't say he has pro-level projectable puck skills. Another kind of guy that you could have probably got either much later in the draft or as a UFA, as a college free agent down the line years in it too. So again, not a very interesting or intriguing pick there.
They got a 19-year-old center in Matthew Perkins. They got a 6'6" winger in Vilmer Ulrichsen as well. Two more guys in the fourth round.
Couple of guys. I mean, Ulrichsen, he's a big boy though, right? He's 6'6". Elmer Soderblom is kind of like the mantra that some teams are seeing these monster Swedes and like, hey, like we can have something fun here. And the net front, he's big. He moves pretty well for a player his size, but he's way too upright when he skates. So that really limits his handling ability. It really limits his puck protection. He's not overly physical. He doesn't have a lot of battle to his game from my viewings of him. He's a big project. So, it's a long-term sort of thing that maybe they see something in him or he's got a really competitive edge that he showed in interviews with their Swede scouts. I'm not sure. But, yeah, long-term project if anything's there at all.
And Perkins, Matthew, the forward.
Yeah, former Humboldt Bronco kid. He played there in his draft year. And I didn't get really any views on him in his draft year. Saw him a couple times this year in the USHL. Pretty good details to his game from what I saw. Smart player. But the feet are really bad. I believe we gave him a 3.5 and 5 is average. So it's really poor. So, he took the extra year as junior to try to help that out, obviously, and it hasn't worked thus far. I believe he's headed to Duluth. So, another project pick, but yeah, the feet are so concerning to me that I don't see him turning out to be a player.
How about the fact that the Vancouver Canucks didn't move in any way, shape, or form? Were you surprised by that? Overall, it was a boring draft, I felt, in the National Hockey League, period. Like, no movement. And I suppose that's logical because it's a good draft, and so people want to keep their picks to some degree. But this is particularly boring. This is particularly stagnant. Should the Canucks have tried harder, do you think? Are you surprised they couldn't do anything differently?
I mean, yeah, this is my 5th draft covering it, 4th live, I guess, 6 in total. And yeah, probably the most boring one altogether. All we had basically was Carolina moving back a few times. We know how they love to do that and clog it up. It's gone very quickly too, but I'm not that surprised that Vancouver didn't do anything. I think that there was a real chance that they would have slid back yesterday had Vilander not been there. If that top 10 had gone a little differently and Vilander and Dvorsky were gone, I think that they would have slid back to 15 or 17 or something like that and then accrued a second round pick. As I reported yesterday, they had several offers to do that and get a second round pick in return, and they opted not to because they value Vilander so highly. But outside of that, I'm not really surprised that they didn't do anything on day 2.
Do you know which teams offered them to move up, Cam? Do you know sort of the range number of where they would have dropped down to execute one of those deals?
I have some educated guesses. How about that? Nashville, Ottawa, potentially Minnesota. There was some teams that we heard a lot were trying to get up. Carolina was trying to get up too. I think they were trying to get up even higher than Vancouver, but a lot of teams were kind of settling as Zach Benson kept sliding down. A lot of teams were looking and making really hard charges to get up to get Mishkov. And once that failed, I think they continued to try to get up to get Benson. So I certainly think that they had opportunities in several different places to slide back.
Yeah, Nashville would have been picked 15, just 4 spots down. I not sure they would have gotten Wielander there, but I think there's a decent shot. Minnesota would have been picked 21, Carolina picked 30, and then Ottawa, I believe, in the second round. So that would be moving down a fair bit. Cam, were you standing on a table, to use scout vernacular, when the Canucks were on the clock at any point today going, gotta take this guy?
Yeah, did they miss the boat anywhere?
Sorry, unfortunately, it cut out a little bit on me, Matt. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, were you standing on the table when the Canucks were on the clock at any point today going, gotta take this guy?
Yeah, there was some players that slid down the draft boards. Jaden Perron with. Yeah, it sounds like our connection's not so great right now, but there was, the Jaden Perron was there very, very late. Basically look at the Carolina Hurricanes draft board and everybody that they picked after Vancouver's 3rd at 75 there is someone that you could probably make a really good debate, be like, there's an upside pick, because that's all they do in Carolina is they take big cuts on high impact potential players. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that's just part of the process. But, they're taking cuts all over the place, and I just love it for them too. So, yes, there was some players there that I was really interested that Vancouver could have taken. Hoyt Stanley was another one I would have been really interested in. Playing out of Victoria, another right shot D, loads of potential, right? He's a project, but loads of potential. And those are the type of players you want to take a swing on. You want to take a cut on these guys with high upside. And that just doesn't seem like it's the mantra for them in the middle rounds.
Yeah, that's the difference between the big cuts of the Canucks or the off-the-board picks of the Canucks, is that the upside isn't necessarily there. If it all works out for a lot of these players chosen from the third round down for the Canucks, they're still kind of projecting to be role players, aren't they? Like they're not taking the guy who's super fast but has no hands. That's a kind of project that you can get behind because at least there's a separated skill there. I don't feel like any of the Canucks prospects that are rolls of the dice have those skills, right?
You nailed it, and you said it perfectly. They're that separating skill, and so the Carolina took Bradley Nadeau at the end of the first round yesterday, and it's because there's going to be safer players to choose at that spot, but he has a separating skill with that shot, right? They look for these skills that we can't get that for free, for cheap, right? You can't get a goal scorer, you can't get a player who has a high upside without paying through the nose. Take him in the draft. Take a swing on a kid that maybe could be an impact player for you down the line in 3 or 4 or 5 years, rather than being like, if everything breaks right, maybe we've got ourselves a depth player on the 4th line or a quadruple A player. It's like, I don't know. That's just not my philosophy when I'm scouting, and if I was making those picks, so it's really hard for me to draw a link between that thinking.
Should mention Hoyt Stanley from the Victoria Grizzlies and St. George's, where Coach Mike Allen whipped him into shape. Shout out, Coach. And he goes to Ottawa in the 4th round, pick 108. And Cam, you and I were texting a little bit about the 2 Prince George forwards, Riley Heidt and Cone Zimmer, both of whom were falling. Heidt, a lot of people thought was a mid-first rounder, and our old friend Judd Brackett nabs him with the last pick in the 2nd round, 64th overall. Is that the best value pick?
Yeah, terrific
in
value
this draft
for them there. Out a little bit here, but tremendous value for Judd Brackett and Co. in Minnesota. That one.
Cam Robinson from Elite Prospects, our NHL Draft Insider for a 3rd consecutive year, and we thank him for helping us out there on the ground in Nashville.